Welcome back, YouTube. Today we're going to get back into Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. Last time we left off, we got so kindly dropped through that hole there. The floor fell out from under us. And now we've been tasked with working together as a team to escape from this dungeon back to the surface. So let's get into it. We're gonna see if these guys have anything to say first. I don't have much experience with battle ornaments myself. I'll do as we were instructed for now, though. Yeah, says the same thing. What a pain. Huh, this seems pretty useful. I should test it out and see what it can do. Our illustrious instructor seems fond of toying with others. Bah, why do I have to put up with this? Hey, about before dots. The future's looking bleak. Dots. Sigh, I guess I should give it up for now. I know this is a military academy, but I didn't think they'd throw us into battles quite this quickly. She even told us to get our courts all set up too. What in the world is she planning on throwing us into? Good, my blade seems undamaged. I'm not particularly adept with orbital arts, but it may be best to have some prepared regardless. Yeah, true.
What's this?
That's called a master quartz. If you set that into the large slot in the center of your Arcus, you'll be able to use arts. Go on, give it a try.
Now we get to do the very fun task of setting up our courts. I'm gonna go Chevalier for Rean. Mars Gem. So, if you look at it here, on the image to the right is a representation of what the ornament looks like when it's opened up, and each line in the earlier games, the longer the line, the more effective each quartz would be. I don't think that has any sort of merit in these games. I'm pretty sure the lines being longer is just an homage to the earlier setups. But if you look at the center panel there, where we got the master quartz and the quartz, the master quartz gives a bunch of different arts and abilities we can use. Arts are pretty much like magic, and in this panel, if you look on the right side of the panel, there's a couple of these slots that have an icon next to it. What that means is that only that type of quartz can fit into that slot. So the easiest thing I find to do is to kind of build my setup around those. Sometimes it can be kind of difficult because, for example, for Rean, our biggest goal with him is going to be to have him do as much damage as possible while still being able to put up a decent defense. So our main stat we're going to be trying to increase is strength. After that would be hit points and defense. Guess we'll go with man, I really don't know which one of these to put in there. No, we'll go with that. Allow the user to act twice. That's helpful. Alright, so typically the color of the quartz represents the type of magic it uses. So red, for example, would be fire, green would be wind, blue's water, etc. There's, I don't remember exactly how many, like 6 or 7 elements that include like time and space and such like that. The game will get into that later on. But one thing to notice too is the element that the quartz is based on will typically affect certain stats. So like the fire element tends to affect your strength stat more than the other elements. There are exceptions to that rule, but it's a good basis to go off of. Interesting. I don't know why it's not letting me use certain quartz. Probably has to be in a certain slot for it to work. Ah, yes, that is it. Nice. And then we'll make these defensive ones. Get that 1800 hit points. And that should be pretty set for Rean's Arcus. Give us a nice boost to health, a pretty sizable boost to strength, and give us a few decent arts to use at the same time. You can also check on the arts you use that you have available to you by clicking on the arts tab, and it'll show you what you have. And when you're out in the field, you can actually use these arts directly from this menu. So you can heal characters by selecting, oh yeah, like this one. So I can heal by selecting that. And that took most of my EP, but that's okay.
What in the world?
That light means that you've successfully synchronized with your Arcus. Congratulations! Now you can use arts as much as you want. These Arcus units have plenty more nifty features. but I wouldn't want to bombard you with too much info all at once, so we'll cover those another time. Anyway, since you've got your Arcus all set up and ready to go, here...
Oops, I didn't mean to skip that. Sorry.
When you step through that door, you'll be in an underground testing area. Basically, it's a dungeon. It's pretty large and full of twists and turns. I'd almost guarantee you'll get lost at least once. But when you find the exit, you'll be able to return to the first floor of this old schoolhouse. There are monsters wandering around, though, so don't let your guard down, even for a moment. With all that said, let's commence our special orienteering exercise. Your objective is to make your way through this area and back to the surface. Make it back in one piece, and I'll be happy to field any complaints you might have. If you make it back safely, I might even give you a kiss. Free of charge. On the cheek, of course.
I don't think she's joking.
And just where do you think you're going? Were you planning to wander off on your own without saying anything?
I have no interest in becoming friends with anyone here, and I'm surprised that you, of all people, give a damn what I do. Unless you've suddenly decided you do want to keep company with one of those stuck-up hedonists after all. Still, if you're afraid of the monsters, I suppose I could accompany you. After all, what kind of Erebonian noble would I be if I didn't have at least some degree of prowess with a sword? And noblesse oblige dictates that it's my sacred duty to protect powerless commoners such as yourself.
What the hell? Nobody's asking your high excellency to deign to help us. But if that's how you're gonna be, I'll just find my way out of here before you. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself without some relic of an outdated class still dragging me down.
What should we do?
The only thing we can do. We should begin exploring these ruins ourselves. I believe it would be prudent to remain in small groups, however. Would the two of you have any objections to accompanying me?
Oh, no, that's fine. It would be a huge help, actually.
And you're welcome to join us as... well,
What's with these kids and walking off on their own?
I suppose that's a no. Perhaps we'll run into her along the way and she can join us then. So, shall we be off? I'm certain you gentlemen will be fine, but do take care.
Okay.
If you'll excuse us, please.
Not such a hot first impression there, huh?
You can say that again. I'll have to clear things up with her later. Anyway, how do you guys want to do this? Should the three of us stick together too?
Sounds good to me. I'd get pretty anxious wandering around a place like this alone.
No objections here. I'd be happy to accompany you. I don't believe I've introduced myself yet. My name is Gaius Warzel. I just arrived in the Empire, so any help you can offer would be much appreciated.
Oh, so you're from abroad. I'd been wondering. My name's Rean Schwarzer. It's nice to meet you.
I'm Elliot Craig. So, you fight with that?
Of course. Why else would I be carrying it?
It's a spear, but it has that odd cross-shaped head.
It looks kind of awesome.
Think of it as combining the best parts of a spear and a poleaxe. I was pretty handy with it back home. But speaking of weapons, I have to say, yours looks pretty unique.
Oh, this thing.
Is it a staff? Wait, no. It's an ornament, isn't it?
Both, actually. It's an orbital staff. The tech is pretty recent. This one's still a prototype, more or less. Back during enrollment, they told me I had some aptitude for it, so when it came time to choose, I just sort of ran with it.
Interesting. I've never seen anything like it before.
Can't say I have either.
They're still in development, apparently, so there aren't too many around just yet. But that said, I'm curious about what you've got there, Rean.
Oh, my sword?
Yeah, but what kind of sword is it?
It's different from the kinds of swords I thought the people in the Empire used, though.
It's an Eastern style of saber called a tachi. Any way you slice it, though, it's basically a longsword.
No pun intended.
Wow, that's one beautiful blade.
The craftsmanship looks exceptional.
They're renowned for the layering of their steel and the sharpness of their edge. Truth be told, though, I'm still a little hesitant to be swinging around something this dangerous.
Seriously? If that's what hesitant looks like, I'll bet confidence will make you unstoppable.
Well, you sound like a good guy to have around when the going gets tough. Speaking of which, I think we've been standing around long enough. We should really be getting ourselves into trouble.
I think I can manage that. You saw it yourselves. Trouble has a way of dropping in on me. Let's take it slow and steady, though. We need to adapt to each other's fighting styles to really gel as a team.
Got it.
Elliot has joined the party. Gaius has joined the party. And now we get to set up their ordnance. Oh, and I forgot to do equipment. So, as I stated at the beginning, this is a new game plus. So, I have items from previous playthroughs that we're going to go ahead and use. So for Elliot, we want to increase the third stat down, the ATS. That stands for arts. So that's the basically strength of arts. So the higher that is, the more damage arts will do. Even though Elliot's more of a healer and support type character, since his weapon deals damage with arts, makes sense to have that boosted as much as possible. And since he'll be at the back, I was not too concerned about giving him the best possible armor, because like I said, he'll be at the back of the formation, so we shouldn't have to worry about it too much. Now Gaius, he is an interesting one. I think for him, I say he's an interesting one because he's does a lot of damage with his spear, but I feel like he benefits most from speed, from like agility and evasion. So I think instead of going for strength to do as much damage as possible, we're gonna see if we can max out his speed and evasion. If I can get his evasion up to like 80%, I think we might be doing okay. Yes, I think we're just going to load him up with 2 of those evergreen items. And that should do it for equipment. Now we'll set up their ornaments. They actually have the standard quartz that they come with. I think are actually the best quartz for them. So we're going to stick with that. Wait a second. Ooh, we're gonna put that one on Rean instead of this one. First attack or craft used each battle deals 2 times the damage. That's definitely more effective than the difference of 15 in strength. Ooh, Arts EP costs negative 25%. That's a great one for Elliot. $100 EP and 15 ATS. Okay, so let me do this. Let's go down the list here of the stats. So the first one you're going to see on the left side is obviously the level of the character. The next one is the hit points. Then after that, EP, which EP is basically the same thing as mana. So that's whatever arts you cast cost a certain amount of EP. CP, I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but craft points, that's what it is. So you have some special attacks which are called crafts, and those use the CP points. They cost a certain amount of CP. The most powerful attack in the special attack that each character has is called an S-craft, which will instantly use all CP that you have. You can have a maximum of 200, but the S-craft requires a minimum of 100. If you have a full 200, it'll do extra damage, but it'll still use the full 200. Next, we've got the current experience points, and it shows us how many experience points we need to get to the next level. Right under that, we have strength, which, as I mentioned earlier, strength is the stat that affects how much damage an attack will do. After that, we got defense, and that's just how much damage is lessened when you get attacked. ATS is arts, So that is how strong your art's attacks are. ADF would be art's defense. So that will determine how badly arts affect the character. If you have a lower ADF, and art will do more damage to you. If you have a higher ADF, it'll do less damage to you. Same as defense, just for defense is for physical attacks, ADF is for magical attacks. Now, speed is the best way to explain this. So, whenever you get into a combat scenario, you get dumped into essentially an initiative. And the way that works is each character has a point in that initiative when they can act. And that includes the enemy characters as well. So the higher your speed stat is, the more frequently your character will be in that initiative tracker. So instead of being like in Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game, when you get into initiative, everybody rolls for initiative, and it starts from the highest roll to the lowest roll, and that's the order that the combat goes in every single round. With this, it's almost like it's rolling every single turn, and the higher your speed is, the higher chance that you're going to be able to act multiple times within one round of combat. Dex, I don't know exactly what that is. I'm assuming it stands for dexterity, and I'm guessing that is more of a parent stat to your agility, evasion, movement, etc. So I'm guessing the higher that stat is, the higher the stats below it will be, but I'm actually not sure about that. It could just be the it could just be I don't think there's anything that affects dexterity, so it might just be a representation of the character's ability in physical combat. It's kind of what it looks like. It looks like the dexterity stat represents how effective in physical combat that character is. Right below that, we have accuracy. Accuracy plus. So the 0% doesn't mean that the character has 0% accuracy. It means they just have 0% to an accuracy buff. For characters that are ranged or do fast attacks versus damage attacks, or really any of the characters, the higher accuracy stat will lessen the chance of the character missing an attack. So if I could, I would want to have Rean be at 100% accuracy, because right now he's got a pretty average chance of missing an attack, and he's my heaviest hitter. So if he misses an attack, I lose out on a pretty sizable amount of damage. Whereas if Elliot misses an attack, it's not really that big of a deal. But again, for Rean, it's more worth it to risk missing an occasional attack to have that higher damage. Next is agility. So your agility stat is basically the overall stat of being able to what would the term be? Act out of initiative. So the substat there right below it is EVA plus. That's your evasion. So when you get attacked, the higher your agility and evasion stats are, the more likely you are to be able to dodge their attack and counter with your own attack. So that's very useful. That's what we're trying to boost with Gaius here, because the more he can... The goal for Gaius is to make him be hit as little as possible, and to build him up as kind of a tanky character so he can take hits, but he doesn't get hit that often. For a character like Elliot, agility and evasion really aren't important because he's going to be at the back. He's going to be behind Rean and Gaius the entire time that we're fighting. So there's no real need for him to be able to dodge attacks. I mean, it's helpful, but with him being farther away from harm, it's not as big of a deal. Moving down again, I touched up on a little bit already, but the evasion plus, that's the same thing. It's a buff stat to your agility. So the higher that percentage is, the more of a boost you have to your agility. MOV, the next one down, movement. So the higher that number is, the more space you can move while you're in combat. So when you're in combat and you try to move your character to attack somebody or out of the way, there'll be this ring that shows up on the ground. 2 rings. One ring is the edge of the combat zone, and the inner ring is the range that your character is able to move in one turn. So the higher the movement is, the farther you can move in one turn, and the less likely you are to not be able to get a hit in because you're too far away from a monster. And then the last stat there is range, RNG. So with that, the higher that stat is, the farther away you can be to successfully make an attack. It doesn't really help that much for characters that are melee characters, though it does help a little because it also factors in counters. So if something attacks you from a distance and your range is high enough, you can actually counter their attack even though they're a farther distance away from you. So there's some characters where that is important. There's a couple characters that we're later on going to be building up as basically counterattack beasts. So they're going to be primarily just dodging and countering attacks. But anyway, getting back into building the 3 characters in front of us. As I said previously, Elliot is more of a healer type character. So for him, we're going to want to do as many of these that benefit his EP as possible. So this slot, probably just going to go ahead and go with EP cut. Now the blue are water arts. Tends to be the primary one for healing. And one thing to note is the Master Quartz grants arts of its own. So if I were to add a Athelas Court, or Athelas Court, we already have that on the Master Quartz. So it's kind of redundant, unless there's some sort of major benefit that quartz offers. But in this case, it doesn't. So that's something you also need to be cognizant of when you're selecting. Otherwise, you're just basically wasting a slot. That's a pretty good one. We'll go with that. Now, he has a couple attacks, but that's not really our biggest issue. So we're going to give him some more support type. That could be helpful. Actually, having the delay for Earth Arts, that will be helpful. Oh, that does both of them. Okay. So we're going to use that one and remove Adamantine Shield. Ooh. We're gonna do the have to lay for water arts, since that's where most of our healing arts come from. So anytime you try to cast an arts, unless you have an initiative buff called 0 arts, there's a delay between when you cast the spell to when you activate the spell. So it could take like 4 or 5 turns before the character is able to actually cast their spell. So having the delay turns that 6 turns into now 3 turns. So if you're trying to keep a character alive, every turn counts. Chrono Drive is a helpful one. All it does is just kind of speed up the time for your allies, as it says, excuse me, so that they can act more frequently within a round of combat. It also increases movement by 50%. So, if that spell was currently cast, for Elliot, for example, his movement would then go up from 9 to 15. So that can be pretty helpful on larger battlefields. Impede is a useful one for a few characters. We'll get into impeding later. Could do that one. Cut arts casting by an additional 15%. See if there's any other. I could give him the ability to debuff enemies. I think we'll go with that. Give him the ability to debuff. Alright, so as I said previously for Gaius, he's a pretty heavy hitter. And Rean is currently my heaviest hitter in the group. He's almost at 1500 strength. Elliot's at kind of below average for this level. I'd say average is probably around 1000. And Gaius is just over 1100. But his defense is also pretty high. And he's a full 8 levels below Rean. So the fact that he's that close at a 6 level gap is pretty impressive. So I want to kind of monopolize on that strength and his defense. So with him, we're going to focus on defense and speed. Hopefully get him to be able to counter more attacks, get more attacks in, while also, oh, that's a useful one, while also doing the fair amount of damage. So our primary stat to try to increase is going to be evasion. So probably go with that one for the plus 80 to defense. Another thing worth noting, you can typically only equip one of a specific quartz at a time. So even though I have multiple quartz of that ALS gem that increases evasion by 15, I can only equip the one. Buff his defense up a little more now. And we'll throw an evade 1 on there. Get up to almost 90% evasion. That should give us a pretty well-rounded character. And with that, I'm gonna make a quick save. Just in case the game crashes, I don't want to have to spend all that time redoing their courts again.
Yikes! A monster!
Huh. Never seen this kind before.
Looks like a flying feline. Careful, everyone.
So, on the battle map, there are objects like this that you can destroy, and some of them have items in them. But anyway, you can get advantage on the initiative tracker by... I can't chase the monster. There it is. Okay. Whoops.
Now's our chance. We can do
So,
Leave it to me.
as you saw, flanking and walking into the monster like that got me single advantage. So all that does is make sure that my characters each get a turn before the flying felines. And I don't want to erase that critical. We're going to use... I forgot I had more items now. Going to use battle scope on these guys. Flying feline. A winged feline monster relentlessly pursues its prey, attacking with kicks from above. Really annoying at level 1, not so annoying at level 72.
All right. Together, we're unbeatable.
Yeah.
Please tell me there aren't more of those things lurking around here.
I hate to tell you, but I can sense more further in.
Anyway, let's just stay alert.
You can now view the Active Voice and Monster Guide tabs on your notebook. The Active Voice record lists the last 50 active voice lines heard, allowing you to reread them or listen to them again. The Monster Guide automatically records information on monsters you fought, serving as a valuable reference. Both can be accessed via the Q key or by choosing Note and selecting the relevant tab from the camp menu. So what that's talking about, right here, we can quickly reference the different monsters, and I've been through here before so I have all of them, but you can reference it and see what type of items you can get from them. So if I was specifically looking for the ingredient red beast flesh, I could look through this and see, oh, okay, flying feline. So I'd know that I need to hunt some flying felines to get that beast flesh. And it also gives you unbalanced efficacy. So that's the third one down on the right side. What that tells you is what type of physical attacks have a higher chance of unbalancing the creature. When you unbalance them, you get a critical hit. When you get a critical hit, you can use a link attack with whichever of the other 3 characters you're linked with. So that's some helpful information. And also on the bottom left, it tells you elemental efficacy. That tells you which elements are most effective against it. And to the right of that, it tells you which status debuffs are the most effective against it as well. So with this one, fire type attacks are definitely the best attacks to use, though with the level that we're at right now, we do not need to worry about that at all. But it is very helpful. So if I ever have to go find certain items that certain monsters drop, I can just reference back into that notebook.
Huh. There seems to be a treasure chest here.
This looks like another quartz. So we can set this into our Arcus units? Most likely. Let's give it a try. We already did. Orbment charging stations like this are often found left behind by some kindly explorer in particularly dangerous areas. If you encounter one, walk up to it and press the left mouse button, then select Rest to restore the HP and EP of all party members. This could be a lifesaver if we find ourselves flagging after a tough battle. Yeah, we should come back here and rest if we need to, just to be on the safe side. Yes, we should. Ah, a new monster. I don't think physical attacks are going to be very effective against that monster. I think you're right. We'll need to rely on arts this time. Got it. Actually, attacking with my orbital staff has basically the same effect as an art, just without any casting time. So if worst comes to worst, I should be able to just run up and smack it. Wow, really? I can see that coming in handy. Well, we're counting on you to lead the charge then. Ah, here goes nothing. So, what I was saying before, if you attack it, stun it, and walk into it, you now have triple advantage. So we have more turns before they do. We're gonna scout these guys. Oh, did I just use a smoke grenade? I did. Whoops. That's not what I meant to do.
Now's our chance. We can do this.
A smoke grenade gives you 100% chance of fleeing an encounter. So if you accidentally attack something that is way above your ability at that time, it can be very helpful. A kind of spongy mollusk that likes areas with high humidity, produces orbital energy in its body, and uses wind arts. Thus, wind arts are the least effective against it.
My turn.
But, unlike they said, physical attacks will be fine because we're high enough level.
All right.
I go where the wind takes me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to lose my sense of direction down here.
Yeah, gotta make sure we're not going in circles.
An insectoid monster, huh? Looks like that shell can take a real beating. Might be pretty tough to take it down. Agreed. We'll need to keep our wits about us against this one. We should probably give it everything we've got, arts and crafts included, and see what works best. Or we could just run up and smack it.
Let's get him. Leave it to me.
Ooh, we have a 0 arts. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see the initiative tracker, and that tells you which character is first in the initiative as it moves through the rounds of combat. Occasionally you'll get buffs on the character. At the very top for Gaius, you'll see that his buff is 0 arts, and at the very bottom you'll see one of the monsters has this little heart with a 10. The heart with a 10 means they're going to get 10% heal on their turn. The 0 arts means that we can cast any art instantly, or supposed to be instantly, and it'll cost 0 EP to cast. So that can be very helpful. I don't want to destroy these things quite yet, so we'll just do Chrono Burst. This is a useful one because it allows the character to act 2 more times.
Leave it to me.
We're going to battle scope real quick. A golden colored beetle. Its carapace is hard like a coin.
It's my turn.
And I'll show you in art how it normally casts. So like that, he starts the spell and it takes several turns before the spell can actually be
Here we
cast.
go.
And then once it's his turn again, he'll automatically cast it.
Together, we're unbeatable.
Elliot, are you okay?
I don't see any obvious injuries.
I'm okay. I was just so relieved the fight was over. The strength kind of just left my legs. I'm amazed how calm you two are. You don't seem tired or worried or anything.
I guess I'm just used to fighting monsters like these.
You need a hand?
No, I'll be fine. It was just a momentary lapse on my part. I can get up. And there we go.
Look out!
Elliot!
What?
Oh no.
No!
What?
Looks like I made it just in time. Thank Adios for that.
Damn, he made that shot with a shotgun from a really far distance. That's kind of impressive.
Oh, it's you!
You said your name was Machias, right?
That's right. I came to realize that I shouldn't have just stormed off like I did. I let that arrogant noble goad me into losing my composure, acting on impulse. So I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I acted foolishly, and I hope you can forgive me for it.
No sweat. Water under the bridge.
Yeah, we all have moments when we say or do things we regret. That's human nature for you. Oh, and thanks for saving me, by the way.
I'm just glad I happened to be passing by. After I'd cooled my head, I decided to retrace my steps, and there you were. Is it just the 3 of you here?
Yeah, we stood around talking for a while, so the others are probably ahead of us at this point.
I don't think there's any reason to go back any farther. I can't imagine you'll find anyone there.
I see. I don't suppose you'd mind if I came with you, would you? I'm reasonably skilled with a gun, so you might find it useful having me along.
Sure thing. Welcome aboard. The name's Rean Schwarzer.
I'm Elliot Craig. It's nice to meet you.
My name is Gaius Warzel. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine, I assure you. My name is Machias Regnitz. Could I ask you what social class you each belong to? I realize how that must sound, considering my recent outburst. But please don't take it personally. I'm simply curious to know who I'm associating with.
Elliot's look.
Well, both my parents are commoners.
Likewise, though my homeland has no class system to begin with.
Ah, so you're from abroad then. What about you, Rean?
Well... let's just say I haven't got a drop of noble blood in my veins. So I guess we're all in equal standing here.
Dots?
Well, now that's a relief. We should probably get moving then. Somewhat concerned about the girls, as you might imagine. I'd feel much better if we were around to help if they wound up in danger.
I'm pretty sure they can handle themselves.
Yeah, I suppose there's strength in numbers.
All right, let's go.
Machias has joined the party. Alright. Going on a little over an hour now. So this is a good place to stop this video. Next time when we come back, we will continue on to the underground area 2 and see what fun events await us there. Once again, thank you for joining me along on this journey, and if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, and as always, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video.